Tonight, the Epstein files set for release, the political fallout, and what happens next. Plus, healthcare showdown. Insurance premiums could skyrocket in a matter of weeks, why some lawmakers are pushing for a new plan. And targeting kids online.
That was the doorway. That these bad guys that we would never let into our home.
From social media to gaming platforms, what to look out for to keep your kids safe. Plus, will trade wars hit your Thanksgiving table? What to expect at the grocery store and smart ways to save on your holiday feast. And the revolution of common sense. It started as a campaign line, now it's a book. Why one conservative commentator says it defines Trump's movement. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. With the bill signed, the Epstein files are set for release. Good evening in Washington, I'm Jenna Browder. President Trump signed the bill into law late last night, taking to Truth Social to blast Democrats, calling the push for transparency a distraction from the GOP's accomplishments. The Justice Department now has 30 days to release the unclassified files related to the convicted sex offender, which will likely include redactions about Epstein's victims. Meanwhile, the fallout continues. Former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers taking a leave of absence from his work with Harvard University over his past relationship with the disgraced financier. In other congressional news, as part of the deal to end the government shutdown earlier this month, the Senate will hold a vote on whether to extend Obamacare subsidies in mid-December. But as medical reporter Lori Johnson explains, some lawmakers are seeking a different approach to Obamacare.
About 22 million Americans who are enrolled in the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, have been receiving tax credits to pay for their health insurance premiums. They're set to expire at the end of this year. Obamacare premiums are expected to increase next year, and without the additional subsidies, will likely skyrocket.
If we don't extend the tax credits, the average American will pay from $500 to $1,000 more every month in their health care insurance. So many people will have to drop health care insurance, and they'll say, what am I going to do?
President Trump opposes extending the existing system of directly paying the insurance companies. He'd rather see the government give the money straight to the patient.
Instead of giving it to insurance companies, big, fat, bloated insurance companies, we're giving the money directly to the people to buy their own health care.
Will Americans buy it from insurance companies?
Some may. I mean, they'll be negotiating prices. It's really free enterprise. They'll be, you can do it through an insurance company. You can also buy it direct. They have savings accounts.
A number of lawmakers are expressing support for that plan.
We're not going to repeal Obamacare. We're going to fix Obamacare. You need everybody ought to be able to buy plans. Everybody ought to be covered. Pre-existing conditions ought to be covered. So that would stop that. I'm not suggesting we change the structure, because I think we can drive down the cost by giving people options.
Government money deposited into Obamacare enrollee accounts could be used to pay for deductibles as well as premiums.
The president is proposing that we take the $26 billion that would be going to insurance companies if we just do a straight-out extension. And by the way, 20% of that $26 billion, 20% will go for profit and administrative overhead. Give it directly to the American people in an account in which 100% of the money is used for them to purchase health care on their own terms.
So far, Democrats are resisting the plan. Obamacare enrollees aren't the only ones seeing their health insurance increase. The roughly 165 million Americans who get health coverage through work are expected to see about a 7.5% hike in 2026. Private insurance spending has increased 80% since 2008, with hospitals, clinics, and doctors receiving the bulk. Nearly half of adults say it's difficult to afford health care costs, and 1 in 3 report putting off health care because of the cost. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Turning now to the online safety of our kids. Roblox, the popular online gaming platform with 151 million users, is adding new safety rules to protect kids. Players will soon have to verify their age using an AI-powered face scan or ID. Kids will only be able to chat with others around their age, not adults. Parents will also get more control over who their kids can talk to. The change comes after dozens of lawsuits claim adults used Roblox to harm children. The new rules are expected to start in Australia, New Zealand, and the Netherlands this December and go global in January. Well, online safety advocates say there is still more to be done in the fight to protect kids online. One of those groups is Enough is Enough. President and CEO Donna Rice-Hughes joins us now. Donna, welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
So let's start just by getting your reaction to these new safety features from Roblox.
Yes, well, as you said, Roblox, they actually had 35 lawsuits against them. And what we've seen with a lot of these companies, including Roblox, but really most of the big tech companies, they act after the fact. After either they've been called out by Congress, someone has died on their platforms or committed suicide. And in this case, you know, there's been a lot of research with Roblox. In fact, one research company called it, let me get this right, an X-rated pedophile hellscape. All right, so so for all your parents out there that are thinking about that Roblox gift card for your grandchild, like I was, I'm like, you know, not exactly safe. So will these changes work? That remains to be seen, because we need to test them first and to really see what is that age verification. It does concern me, however, based on what you just said, Jenna, that kids would only be able to play with people their own age. Well, that really depends on how that age verification is really, really working. So we've always encouraged parents to just let their kids play, especially if they're not mature teens, with people that parent knows and approves of. And that would go for any online platform, whether it's a gaming platform or social media. Parents can have the ability, through the tools that these platforms provide, to limit who their kids are interacting with.
Absolutely, and to keep an eye on things, to know what's
Absolutely.
going on. So Enough is Enough has been spreading the word about an online network that's called 764. Donna, what can you tell us about this group? And also, I understand the FBI is also issuing a warning.
Yes, they did. They issued a warning a little while ago. This is an online gang. They're really, I'll call them a child terrorist gang. And one of the leaders is only 21 years himself. There are over 250 investigations, and they are actually preying on kids really around the ages of 10 to 17, again, on social media platforms and gaming platforms like Roblox and Discord. Why? Because where kids play, predators prey. That has always been the case. I've been doing this work since 1994. So kids are online significantly. The incidences of online sex crimes have gone up dramatically just in the past couple of years. So this particular gang thankfully caught the attention of this Justice Department and Pam Bondi, and you know, and they're going after them as they should. But whether it's 764 or anyone else, predators are out there looking for your kids and grooming them. All right, they know how to track down innocent, vulnerable kids. Gaming platforms are particularly problematic because why? The kids are online playing, having fun. Their guard is down. And so a predator can easily come in, befriend them, you know, be their gamer buddy, teach them some new tricks of the trade, and then get them offline, or not offline, but into a private area where they can then abuse them. In this particular instance, this gang was actually doing real-time abusing these kids virtually in real time while other gang members watched on. Now, pedophile groups have been doing this for a long time. Obviously, they're you know, getting these kids to send nudes of themselves, then sextorting them. One of the largest crimes, growing crimes globally now, is sextortion. So really, the internet is just, I just caution parents, even your smart, safe Christian child, they're vulnerable. And no child is immune, and that's what we do at Enough is Enough. We work with law enforcement, we work with these big tech companies to do the right thing, but mostly we're here to get the resources and the information to you so that your kids can, if they're going to be online, they can be online safely under your direct supervision.
And we should mention that you are pushing for the passage of the Kids Online Safety Act. Donna, we'll have you back to talk about that. We're out of time, but it's great to have you on with us this evening. Donna Rice-Hughes, President and CEO of Enough is Enough. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, Turkey with a side of tariffs. How the ongoing trade war could impact your holiday spread. Welcome back. Well, we are 1 week away from the warmth of the Thanksgiving holiday, but you may be wondering the impact the ongoing trade wars will have on your Thanksgiving feast. Here with the answers to all of your holiday budget questions and a look at the latest economic news is Mark Hamrick, Washington Bureau Chief and Senior Economic Analyst at Bankrate. Mark, great to see you. Let's start with today's news if we can. We finally got a glimpse of the September jobs numbers. What can we glean from those?
Good to see you, Jenna. This is PS data, pre-shutdown data, because this was collected around the 12th of the month of September, a long time ago. Typically would have been released in early October. And so it gives us an idea about the condition of the job market going into the shutdown. And what we can say is the job market is not particularly robust. If there was good news in the report, it was that employers added 119,000 jobs, 97,000 of those being in the private sector, the other being in governments. The unemployment rate rose a bit to 4.4%. That's the second straight month where it's been on the rise. And you look across the board, and sectors participating in jobs creation, in other words, the healthy sectors of the economy that are doing the best in terms of growth. First of all, it's few and far between, but it's sectors that you do not build a robust economy upon. They are healthcare and social assistance, and that has really been the case for much of this year.
Yeah, the U.S. Commerce Department also released the August trade deficit numbers. Mark, that report is a few months behind as well. What do those numbers reveal about third quarter GDP and the potential impact on consumers?
Yeah. So trade will likely be a positive in the most recent quarter. That's important. The trade deficit, the gap between what we export and what we import, declined by 24%, a slight drop in exports, what we're shipping beyond U.S. borders, but a bigger drop in imports. And it's important to note that this was after some of the most severe or costly Liberation Day tariffs were brought down to a lower level. So I think in this world where the worst case scenarios for tariffs seems to have been abated or avoided, that we probably are in for steadier trade data going forward. One of the things that did drop, or I should say one of the things that did not drop among imports, was automobiles coming into the United States, and that's just a factor where there are a lot of makers that frankly bring their autos into the United States, and we don't have a source for them in the United States.
So, you know, Mark, on everybody's mind, many of us will be hitting the stores this weekend to shop for Thanksgiving. What sort of impact, Mark, could the tariffs have on prices when we go? And will the president's decision to drop tariffs on things like beef and spices help to curb some of the expense?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you can eat a banana for breakfast and drink your coffee, and those should be less costly in the future. The good news on the Thanksgiving meal cost, Jenna, is that they are now believed to be down 5% from last year, and that continues a recent trend. And one of the things I can tell you as the chief grocery shopper and cook for our family is that grocery stores view the pricing of turkeys this time of year as a promotional opportunity. So many of them will be really chopping the price of turkey just to get you in the store. And so that really can provide an opportunity to put that meal on the table, and you'll be thankful that you didn't have to pay as much as you might have otherwise.
Mark, you mentioned you're the cook of the house. What's your specialty?
Just getting the meal on the table, but the problem with me, as you can tell, Jen, is I love to eat, but I probably gravitate toward a combination of American comfort food and Italian food.
All right. Well, Mark Hamrick with Bankrate. It's always good to see you, Mark. Have a fantastic Thanksgiving. Okay, the revolution of common sense. Up next, how a theme from President Trump's campaign and inaugural speech sparked a literary mission for one conservative commentator. his inaugural speech, President Trump issued a call for a revolution of common sense. That theme resonated with one leading conservative, and he's been promoting it ever since. Now, Scott Jennings has written a book about the president's vision and why he believes it's so important. CBN's chief political analyst, David Brody, tells us more.
We will begin the complete restoration of America and the revolution of common sense. It's all about common sense.
That second-term theme by President Trump is something political strategist and former assistant to President George W. Bush, Scott Jennings, now spends most nights on CNN trying to explain a common-sense plan to an often confused or skeptical audience.
What do you mean? What are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
I am not accustomed to helping your party do anything.
Yep.
But let me give you some advice. This was the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
Now, Jennings is putting his thoughts on paper with his new book, A Revolution of Common Sense, how Donald Trump stormed Washington and fought for Western civilization.
I heard the president use that phrase in his inaugural address, and I thought, this really does sum up the political branding that he's applied to the Republican Party and to the conservative movement.
Jennings watched those values play out early in his life while growing up in the coal mining town of Dawson Springs, Kentucky.
I do come from rural West Kentucky. I'm the son of a garbage man and a factory worker.
It's an area once dominated by blue-collar Democrats who watched their party drift left as Trump filled the vacuum.
My dad was a big Clinton guy, Union guy. My grandfather was a New Deal Democrat, really. But my dad was also the first person to tell me Donald Trump was going to be the next president.
Given his deep ties to the Bush family, Jennings didn't see it that way at first. He supported Jeb Bush. But eventually, Jennings came around.
I'd been on the roller coaster with Donald Trump, and at a few moments, I was a little green around the gills on some of the loop-de-loops. But what I have come to realize is that the United States is the last best hope for the West. Europe has been overrun, and our president is standing on the front lines defending what we know as Western civilization.
And writing this book helped bring a stronger connection to Trump.
As a political actor, I feel closer to President Trump now than I ever have, even though there are things about him or decisions he's made that I don't necessarily agree with. But just what he's doing, the way he operates, I feel closer to him today than I ever have. I think that's true for millions of Republicans.
And that's why he sought to lay out how this is such a hands-on president and what his critics don't understand about him.
If you love Trump, you'll be smarter about understanding why he operates the way he does. And if you don't like him, you'll also be smarter for understanding how the opening days of this administration unfolded.
And readers can also take in why Trump is not really an isolationist president when it comes to foreign policy. On Israel, for example, Jennings believes a combination of curiosity, deal-making, and audacity played out perfectly.
I actually believe he was the only president, the only American president who could have pulled off the hostage deal because of his ability to get all these personalities into the room. He is a friend of Israel.
Jennings also explains Trump's connection to evangelicals, even if liberals in the media will never quite understand it.
We didn't hire this man to sing soprano in the choir. We hired him to guard the church door. And by the way, the barbarians are at the gates.
Scott, I think one of the questions, though, for you.
That must be the feeling Jennings feels most every night on CNN as he bats down liberal talking points.
Stay out of our doctor's offices and stay out of our bedrooms.
Well, I guess I'll have to speak up for the babies. They're not here to speak for themselves. Lord have mercy.
What is it like on that set every night? It's not even about so much defending President Trump as it is just kind of enlightening the panel.
What I have realized is some of my fellow panelists and people they bring on, I might be the only Republican they know. And if not, but for being contractually obligated to do so, they might not know any. My job is to translate from Red America how we are absorbing the news, why we see things the way we do, using my political experience and my authentic values to say, well, this is how this decision strikes me. I recognize you all are mad about it, but, here's how somebody from Dawson Springs, Kentucky is going to absorb it. And I think for our audience, it's a valuable perspective. I think it makes them smarter.
And on that subject, Jennings learned something else from researching his book.
And I'll tell you one thing I've learned. I don't know who the heck was running the country in the 4 years previous, but I sure as heck know who's running it right now. The nerve center of our government is the Oval Office, and it's right behind the Resolute desk. It is not diffused. He's got his cabinet in there. There are people coming and going. It's a bustling West Wing. the president, the elected president, is firmly in control of the country.
You can also feel confident that Jennings is quite familiar with common sense Americans, as all signs indicate he's one of them.
I'm Scott Jennings, and thanks for listening to the Flyover Country podcast.
His podcast is called Flyover Country because his interest goes beyond Washington and the urban areas focused on by most media. When he's not on CNN, he's home with his wife, 4 children, and the family bulldog, while also raising dozens of chickens, too. A messenger who resonates with the common American.
There's a gear that people who get elected president have. Trump has it. And he gives millions of Americans the feeling that he speaks for them in a way that they would speak if anybody ever put a microphone in front of their face.
Scott Jennings has a microphone too, and he hopes his new book will amplify the message even more. David Brody, CBN News, Washington.
Thank you, David. And so ahead, it's going up. A massive monument to miracles next. Finally tonight, construction of a massive monument telling stories of answered prayer is officially underway. Richard Gamble has broken ground on the 168-foot tall landmark that's set to be one of the largest Christian monuments in all of England. Gamble says the eternal wall of answered prayer began as a vision God gave him of a giant infinity loop made of 1 million bricks. Each brick represents an answered prayer that guests can learn the story behind just by scanning it with their phone. The monument opens to the public in 2028. All right, that's going to do it for Faith Nation tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great evening.